Okay, so welcome. This is the 3rd of May, 2023, delivery system sync and demo. Today we're going to have demo first and discussion points later. Demo. Jenny, stage is yours.
Cool. So yeah, we wrapped up the quarter with some cool dashboards. So I wanted to demo like the entire dashboard. I know we've kind of talked about it over the quarter, but if I share my screen, this is kind of where we are leaving off with the quarter. So I'm going to be demoing the release management tool dashboard. Pretty sure like a bunch of you are familiar with this already. We have basically, we started off this dashboard with, wanting to know like, hey, how many jobs failed, how many jobs got retried. So you can kind of see that correlation here. Auto deploy job retries per project, auto deploy retries per job. So these kind of two go hand in hand. And if I move this down, and then this is kind of the direct like time correlation with the number of retries. And then moving on to like tag releases, a bunch of people do ask like how many have we done throughout like the past month. You can select the time range. So for example, if we do like the last 30 days, yeah, we can see how many like auto deploy releases went out and all the other patch releases and the monthly one. And then we go back to talking about more auto deployments. So these are incomplete auto deployment versions in the, I'm going to put this back to 7 days. But yeah, basically 7 days, you can see how many were incomplete. There's still that caveat with the whole query range, where one of them at the end of the time range is still technically could be the complete one, but at the time it's incomplete. But yeah, and then same thing for this number, but this can give you like a general idea of how that week went.
One question, Jenny.
Yeah, what's up?
What's the definition of incomplete failed deployment? Something that didn't reach production, everything that stopped before, right? So if we deploy staging, but let's say for whatever reason we didn't deploy production, this is considered not completed.
Yeah, so like the version was created, just not taken to all the way to production. It could be because of an incident. It could be because because of a prior incident, the package was delayed. So we just ended up, promoting 1 out of 2 packages that ended around the same time for promotion. Like just includes everything. That just that's why it's named incomplete rather than like failed or stuff like that. Just encompasses. It just includes all of them. I don't know how to pronounce that word. Auto deploy deployments, total statistics. This is just mainly right now, it's for the duration. It is supposed to be sorted from, it's really hard to read this number, but it's supposed to be like from the most recent. I think. Yeah, it is supposed to be most recent because that is May 3rd at 6:20 UTC. That's how you read that. But yeah, so basically all the durations, and once you get curious, like, hey, why did that thing suddenly take 2.5 days? At the bottom here, you can like.
I think that's because I
was like
tried a pipeline on Monday from Friday.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, you can actually take a look. You can click into this. It'll take you to the deployment metrics, and you can actually tell that, it per like environment, it didn't last a long time. It just what Ruben just said, the total pipeline duration of the coordinated pipeline from start to finish. If you do the minus, like it becomes 3 days. But yeah, that's my end of the demo. I'm going to hand it off to Vladimir to actually explain the deployment metrics dashboard because he has a new iteration to it. Yeah, any questions on this one?
On this one, no. The next one, I had a question, but I can keep it for the end.
Cool. I'll stop sharing.
Thank you.
Right. So
Nice job.
The next one would be, so this is not the version that currently deployed. I opened MR yesterday, but it hasn't merged yet. But I'm gonna demo the actual status. How can I just got rid of this bar? All right, so now we have, so we all know that's deployment metrics. It's supposed to be in delivery folder. Once it's merged, it will go there. So it started with this merge request statistics. Now it has pipeline duration per version. So first of all, what I changed, I got rid of environment and stage selection. So we only interested in the version because like we do have this aggregated view here per environment and stage, so we can see how much time it took to deploy to certain environments and stages. And this one is the whole coordination pipeline, like the runtime for coordination pipeline. I think in my MR I renamed it to coordination pipeline duration. And here you have like the whole overview and coordination pipeline. And here you have a table, which I don't honestly know how to span it more, but I will try to figure this out. For the time being, let's just keep it like this, but it would be nice if it can just span to the whole screen. But here you have a table with pipeline name, and then you can just click on the pipeline and you can see the actual pipeline. And also here we have environment and stage, then the project, and then the status of the pipeline. And then you can even, filter out for those values, right? So we can just see all failed pipelines, and then you can just go and remove this filter. And so it's basically pipeline, environment, stage, project, status, and the duration. Currently, so you can scroll and you can see all the pipelines, and you can also filter per stage and environment. So if we're interested in project, production and main, so we can see the pipelines for production main. And it's sorted by duration. So the longest one on top. So as we see, production main is on top, and then stage and ref is on top as well for some weird reasons. But basically, the next iteration would be to, well, now we have more or less what we wanted to know about particular version. So like how long it took to deploy, what are the particular pipelines for that version, what are the merge request statistic about this. By the way, this merge request statistics is also changed slightly. So now we are only showing merge request lead time to production. So we don't really need, I was thinking like we don't really need to show merge request statistic for staging or for staging ref, because it's not relevant. Like everything that we really care is lead time to production. So now this one shows to prod main. And yeah, the next iteration would be to hook this table to job overview dashboard. So we have a job overview dashboard that created by Ahmad, and then we can click here or here. I don't know, like what is the best column to click. So if you click here, for example, you can go and see the overview of all jobs for that particular pipeline. So that's going to be the next iteration. And then I would say we kind of wrap up this epic more or less.
I have a question. So in the pipelines overview panel, all the pipelines that I see there are all downstream pipelines, right?
Those are all downstream.
Kind?
Yeah. Those are all downstream pipelines. It doesn't show anything about coordinator pipeline, I believe. But I thought that we might also add a special panel for coordinator pipeline as well, because coordinator pipeline not only has a downstream pipeline, but also has something that it runs within the pipeline itself, because those are all downstream pipelines.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the thing. So like a pipeline can have downstream pipelines and jobs.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I'm wondering what is the best way to visualize a pipeline. So like even these downstream pipelines, they don't just have jobs. Some of them have further downstream pipelines.
Yeah.
So
exactly. Yes.
Think about that.
That's why I added the pipeline ID for the job in the metrics. Then we can track down the things, you know. And that's, is it in it's already merged or not? I don't remember, because there is yet another MR to release tools metrics that adds this pipeline ID. I think it's already merged. Yeah, that's it.
Merged long back.
Sorry?
Yeah.
I think
I think that was merged.
Yeah. You asking what's the best to jump to the jobs dashboard? No? There is space there, so you could just add one more column if we are not sure, if we don't want to make something clickable. You can have another column.
I can make something clickable. I just wanted to ask from your point of view, what is the best? I think duration bar. If you click on duration bar, you can go to the job overview. I think that's
that's the thing. If the UX is confusing, like if it's not obvious what you can click, it might be better to just have a separate column so that it's clear. Okay, click here to go to jobs dashboard.
Yeah.
Just a thought.
Maybe, yeah.
Because if now actually, when you say, you know, we can click in the duration, say, I would have never click in the duration to drill down there. So yeah, probably having an explicit button probably could be easier for people to understand, or a link or whatever.
Or you see,
the
this
pipeline.
Sorry, this is kind of obvious that you can click, right? Because it's link and it looks like a link.
Yeah.
So I suggest maybe then use this field to click, because if we make it clickable, then it will look like a link as well.
But is it relevant to think about that as the project?
Or status? I don't know. I'm very bad in UX.
Yeah. Otherwise, we were not all the site reliability engineers and backend engineers here, probably. Right. Okay, let's figure it out.
Okay.
And let's add it and let's wrap it up. But I mean, quarter ended. I think now looking at the demo and everything, I think we got like very good progress. We got a lot of information out of that, and I'm actually really impressed with what we achieved with that, right? Especially because at the beginning was, okay, can we do that? Can we not do that? how we should do this better. So I think we got out of there as a success. So congrats to everybody working on that. So big kudos.
But I still think that on the next quarter, not as the main job, but as I don't know, a best effort, we need to build the deployment overview with all aggregations that we discussed, that we're gonna repurpose deployment SLO dashboard. So I would say that let's just maybe create the issue to repurpose deployment SLO dashboard and put it in the second quarter.
I think we have an issue already for that, if I recall correctly.
Okay.
I think it's
Yeah.
linked to 889. And let me see. We have this review deployment SLO target, and then we have this measure and graph end-to-end release infrastructure time. That they are not directly relevant to that. Let's see iteration 2, honestly, of this. So I don't see something that is explicit for that. So someone wants to take an action to create this issue on the iteration 2 epic. Volunteers.
I can do that.
Yeah.
Just thinking out loud here, I think we have enough information now to also build a dashboard that could be useful to people outside delivery. So like say a developer
Amazing.
wants to check what deployments are ongoing, what auto deployments are ongoing. So maybe we can have a dashboard which shows all the ongoing auto deployments and maybe a few of the latest completed ones, something like that could be useful.
It's a nice idea, yes.
Ruben, do you want to open an issue for that?
Sure, I'll open up.
Okay, thank you very much. Because that would be like a big step also to showcase, to answer a lot of time people how long it's going to take, where it is, and everything. And it's going to give a lot of visibility on the work we are doing, right? Sometimes it's tough for teams in development even understanding how their software ends up in production. At least this is not going to give you the full explanation, but at least it's going to take a small step ahead, I would say.
We actually have enough metrics to show like every single job, but that'll be a mess.
Yeah.
But the other thing I was thinking of is people also don't usually know when deployments are blocked. So when deployments are blocked, usually who knows? Like delivery team knows, maybe the QA team knows, and a few from infrastructure. But like developers don't know.
Maybe we should have a dashboard with a big traffic light, green, yellow, and red. Deployments are blocked or not.
Would be nice if we could show like incidents and change requests blocking deployments. So like if there is something blocking deployments, like show some visual indication, and maybe also like show what is blocking.
I think that is possible, and this is the good idea. And I think that instead of creating more entities, we can put all these things into deployment overview dashboard, so that might be the entry point for like everything. And it will also require to have a little bit more metrics, like block deployments and all these things, I presume.
Yeah.
Ruben, I think you just won another issue to open about the dashboard of. Yes.
I think we already have one, but yeah.
Okay. Perfect. It's a nice idea. It's a great idea. Great. So I think I'm considering this call as the call to kick off the work for the EPIC 962. So the EPIC of work 962, that is Skarbek put down everything together. Vladimir is going to be the DRI for this work. but Vladimir is going to be off as well. So Ahmad, I'm relying on you to drive a bit Vladimir on what it means to be a DRI, and also to support him with the when he's also going to be off in these days. Unfortunately, to leave in 5 minutes. So one thing it's how do we want to proceed with the work there? So we need to create, we have an issue Epic 962, that is the one that we all know and we discussed about, where we have a set of child issues there, right? Compiling set of ingress requirements for the POC and all the issues blocked on that one. So shortlist ingress POC candidates, and I guess the candidates is going to be like one is going to be probably Istio for what we spoke about before. And from that on, we need to start moving, creating the piece of work of rudimentary testing for television pre-production, installing pre-production, and addressing also all the comments that we added in 954. That is the one that is actually kind of the umbrella Epic that is containing all the work that we're having here. So we have some discussion, especially lately, about Vladimir and the comments from Vladimir and Skarbek about how to plug in Flux for GitOps in this effort. And the idea was, we are not actually owning the entire end-to-end infrastructure and everything, but for sure we have no problem in starting that in the Gates workloads GitLab.com repo, right? Is this something that we are owning? It's something that it's going to prove also as a good proof of concept that maybe can be taken over by reliability to extend to the other repositories and so on. So how do we want to start to do that? What would be the first item we would like to tackle in this work?
I would say that first of all, we need to close all these POC issues because I don't think we need to create multiple POCs. I did my research, and it's kind of obvious that we use Cilium plus Istio, and we use Istio. What was the name? Istio, whatever, like a new version of Istio that doesn't require to have a ambient Istio. Yes, so ambient mesh. So we're using the ambient mesh in order to kind of get rid of those freaking sidecars. Close them, probably even close the issue from reliability, because it's clearly saying that kind of create POC and try to figure out what needs to be done and blah, blah, blah. I think we just do with what is the kind of the best in the market and what is already available for us. That's the first thing. The second thing, I already kind of listed somewhere in the issues, I already listed the kind of milestones that we need to achieve. And I would say the first milestone perfectly fit to Quarter. And the first milestone would be to have Istio installed on the newly created cluster using Terraform provider. Using a Flux, and install Flux using Terraform provider. So like the first thing would be to actually spin up new cluster and add to Terraform provider for Flux, add to our Terraform.
Let's try it. You need to help me to take notes on this, right? Because at the end
I wanted to create the issues anyway, so I just wanted to verbalize it. So I will try to, before I left. I will be away from Tuesday next week until like for 10 days, basically. For 8 days, to be more precise. Yeah, I will create all the issues and create the epic with all this stuff. But apparently, the first iteration would be to add Flux to our Terraform, create GitOps repository. We probably even want to create GitOps group in our infrastructure. And then in this GitOps group, we might have, since we probably want to have multi-tenancy, we might have everything that is related to GitOps within this group. So like multiple repositories.
Do we need, for this part, do we need to sync also with foundations? Or this is something that is limited to the case workloads repository?
It's limited to case workloads. So we put we create yet another group which calls GitOps, and then we put like one repository for now within this group, and then most likely put another one later, but just like have everything in one place. I think it's always good. Then once we have once we have Flux installed and hooked to this repository, we can add resources to this repository. And the obvious resource would be to Istio installation and probably Flugger installation. And we just create the components that we manage in and put them on, hook them into this repository. And finally, we will have one or two, maybe two clusters, even better, with Flux and with Istio installed. And we can play around pre-environment, and we can play around those scenarios where we have blue-green deployment on both clusters, blue-green deployment for the cluster, experimental endpoints, review apps, and etc., etc. But this is, I guess, that's gonna be at the end of the quarter. But the first step would be to install everything.
One question. I think something that we didn't discuss it a lot, but something that would be great to have is what would be the ability for us to create multiple deployments that we can now I'm gonna verbalize it well. The ability to dynamically create additional deployments, how we would be able to do that. I think now we are missing this kind of functionality.
I was actually thinking to look at review apps functionality and probably hook it to review apps. But
what additional
I don't know.
deployments are we talking about?
So let's say that we have a deployment that receives all the traffic, and then we are going to have this new deployment coming in that we need to ship the traffic to. So right now, what are we doing? We are actually bringing. So we are right now. We are not keeping both deployments up, right? We are actually fading one out, as far as I understand, right? We are kind of draining it slowly. Then I think the logic would be probably a bit different, where we will keep both of them up and then, or gradually shift traffic or shift traffic, whatever speed we want, but we'll have actually need to have a different logic to manage this kind of deployments, or how these deployments are looking like. Do we need to separate them in, I don't know, entities like namespaces, or do we want to, is it possible to do them without that also? I'm not sure. I mean,
that actually what Flugger is for. So we can leverage Flugger, and in the Flugger is a progressive rollouts for service mesh, and we can set up Flugger to either just spin up additional deployment, and then we can say like, okay, traffic can be routed to this deployment if you have a special cookie, for example, or we can run, we can spin up additional deployment, and we can route like a X amount of traffic to that deployment, and then run the tests or check Prometheus metrics or whatever. So it's like a super clever thingy, and you can really orchestrate like the traffic shift with Flugger. But I was also thinking about having experimental deployment. So that's why I said like maybe review ops is a good thing for experimental deployments. So like you create a review app, it will create you the endpoint with a code that you're actually trying to test, and then you can just open the endpoint, and you have like a fully functional GitLab instance.
Yeah, let's keep maybe that as a bonus point, because I think we already have a lot for for the quarter. How do we? I think probably, I mean, not now, but we'll have to start thinking which is the tooling that will actually interact with Flugger and so on. So who's going to say, okay, which tooling is going to say, okay, who's now shift traffic, or please now roll back, or something like that. I think this is something that probably needs to start to think about that as well. I mean, it's not probably one of the next steps, but probably something that will have to come through the quarter. Hopefully then by the end of the quarter, we'll have a way to interact with that. Because right now we have no way through, I don't know, release tools or deployer to do that. I think we need to start to think about logically which is the best place to do that.
Yeah, we don't actually need deployer or release tools dealing with that. We need release tools, like the part of release tools that's responsible for chat ops. That's probably we need to, like, you can add chat ops commands to actually manipulate the traffic. That's one thing. And another thing is that Flugger can do, like, if we are talking about manual interactions, that yes, chat ops should be the way to go. You can pause reconciliation, you can unpause reconciliation, you can roll back things like this, and etc., etc. But apparently Flugger is just in the Flugger spec, you define the way how you rolling out the traffic, so you don't need to do anything. It will be coded in the Flugger spec.
Okay.
You just said like, okay, like first what you do, you shift, like as example of scenario, right? First you create a new version, then you shift 10% of the traffic, then you either execute some GitLab pipeline or go to Prometheus and check the health of the new version, or if it's success, and if pipeline successful, or if metric return expected result, then shift next 10% of traffic, and etc., etc., etc. So like all the progression logic is a part of Flugger.
Okay. Okay. Anything extra? Yeah. Sorry, Ruben.
Once we have the capability of building, say, experimental clusters and deploying to them, we'll also have to modify the metrics that we use to determine GitLab health. Because now we have just GitLab metrics. So you'll also have to have some way to distinguish between main GitLab deployment and experimental deployments.
Yeah.
So we'll have to do that. Then you'll have to incorporate that into whatever checking process that we have for checking the health of experimental deployments.
Yeah. There is something needs to be changed in the whole story. I totally agree. Well, adjusted, not changed. But
Also, just a note. So when we are talking about experimental deploys where developers are allowed to deploy an unmerged MR, we'll have to be very careful with security concerns, because an unmerged MR means you have to assume that it's completely unverified code. So
And
that I
unsafe.
think we'll have to work on last, probably with input from security teams.
mm. What would be very useful to list all these potential scenarios that we expect. For example, blue-green for new version, right? Or canary for new version, then A/B testing with cookie, for example, or A/B testing with for production traffic. Then review apps, then experimental deployments, then all these things. Like we need to list them and see what we can cover within 1 quarter.
Well, actually, I was about to bring. Oh, sorry.
So
Go for it.
go ahead, Jenny.
Okay. I just have a small concern because I think the scope that we were talking about just now, like I agree that that's encapsulated that in the path to more deployment capabilities for GitLab.com, which is Epic 954. But that also has the Epic, like the sub Epic, 872, which is to create a system that would allow for experimentation with like Kubernetes deployments, right? I feel like what we discussed with like Flux and all that is it like doesn't that go more into that epic than this one? So what I'm mostly concerned about is that the overarching epic of 954, I feel that it's a bit too overly ambitious for 1 quarter. So I was under the impression that we were going to kind of categorize only the service mesh part to this quarter. So I just want us to keep that in mind when we go and change that epic into something that will encapsulate like all the Flux work, all the Flagger work, and the metrics work, because I feel like that can also create a lot more like work for us when our main goal for this quarter at the end of the quarter, we want like our goal is to have Istio, like the service mesh part, production ready, right? Not like production deployed, but up to the production ready part. So yeah, I don't know if there's a way for us to go forward with the service mesh implementation part alongside kind of investigating this whole Flux format. So I don't know if we need the Flux step in order to implement the service mesh step. Like, am I making sense? Because the epic for the service mesh kind of, in my opinion, that was just like get those configurations in and deploy it to the lower environment, see how it works, right? But then now we're kind of discussing about, hey, can we change the configuration in our repo and then implement Flux on top of it? Which I agree, like we should do, like, but I don't know about the time to do that versus like what, like the timeline of all that happening, because of the end goal of this quarter that I thought we set as we want the service mesh to be production ready. And I'm just concerned because of the last quarter, what happened, because all this like we have so many great ideas that kind of get sidetracked. So I just want to keep that scheduling in mind when we discuss all this. Because we're going to separate this out to have separate issues and stuff right now.
That's a great point, Jenny. But since we're talking about progressive rollouts, and we're talking about coding those progressive rollouts using Flagger, and we are talking about Istio itself. I see that. So the first of all, like a Flux migration, is something that we need to do in the long-term goals. Why not to start it now, since it's just the way of building the things and deploying the things on the cluster, and that will be like 10 times easier than messing around JSONet, honestly. So, and also Flagger works very well with Flux. So if we are kind of, sorry?
One question. So I'm also, I'm probably sounding like a broken record. I'm always concerned about, the scope gets too big, scope gets too big. So, how much work we are speaking about if we start to integrate Flux for case workloads, GitLab.com repo, and can we achieve the end of the OKR with the same effort or less effort if we for now we skip Flagger?
I'm not worried about installing Flux using Terraform and installing Istio using Flux and installing Flagger using Flux. I'm not worried about that because it's pretty simple. What I'm worried about is actually implementing all potential use cases and all potential scenarios that we have. This is kind of a lot of work, but having Istio ready, like pre-production ready, using Flux and switching that part to GitOps, this is probably less time-consuming thing than actually implementing all the logics. And from my point of view, implementing all the logics and scenario without doing that in using a current approach will drastically explode the scope, because I don't even know how to do such a things without GitOps, basically.
Wait, so I have a question on top of that. So once we implement Flux with the whole case workload GitLab.com with Flux, how are we going to test that configuration works, right? Because we have production, like I'm looking at the base and the gprod YAML kind of thing. So we'd be converting that to like the Flux / customized format, right?
I'm currently, just to be clear, I'm not talking about switching like the whole deployment. I'm not talking about changing the gear to Flux completely right now. I'm just talking about using Flux for installing Istio and Flagger only, and then have the rest of the things that we are and have on top of that have all these scenarios implementing using Flagger and Istio. That's what I'm talking.
Gotcha.
I'm not talking about changing the gear to GitOps right now. We definitely need to do that, but again, this is like a lot of work, and we better move it to the next quarter. But now the end result would be to have a cluster bootstrapped in same way as we did that in the past, but also add to this cluster Flux and Flugger and Istio and manage this particular part using GitOps.
Gotcha. Okay. I think we're on the same page. I thought, yeah, we're going to convert that repo, and that seemed like a lot.
No.
Okay, so
That's a lot of stuff.
yeah,
have
and
a
then
question.
yeah. Sorry, let me just wrap
Sorry,
up.
sorry,
So yeah,
sorry.
that
Yeah.
I think yeah, that's definitely going to help us like even test out Flux and its deployment capabilities to the point where I think if it's really beneficial, then in the future we can definitely push for like a whole conversion kind of thing for a lot of the repos that we use. But yeah.
When you say use cases and scenarios that you're worried about, do you have any examples?
Yeah, that's what we just say. Like, what do we expect? Do we expect canary deployments? Do we expect A/B testing? Do we expect
Okay.
like experimental branches deployed in a different endpoint or something like that? So that those use cases and scenarios that I'm referring to.
Okay, follow-up question then. Are those scenarios part of the OKR target that we have? Because I
No.
have a feeling many of those scenarios are like huge workflows
Yeah.
by themselves. And a lot of
Yeah,
the work for those scenarios will be process work rather than, technical work.
yeah, I think we need to have the capability to shift traffic in any way we want, I would say. But at the end of the OKR, we are not expecting to be able to do that, right? Having like requirements in place, everything that well tested, and when to shift, when to roll back, when to shift that bigger with bigger steps and so on. This is something that will come later. So the OKR itself is about the capability of having clusters where we can switch traffic with our needs. I wouldn't go all the way to have all the requirements, at least not for this quarter or not this OKR. Because let's keep in mind, this quarter is only us.
Yeah.
Scarbeck is out. We have holiday season is starting. AI work is going to take a big chunk of us. Maybe we're going to get grabbed to some side projects for a bit. So let's keep it real.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I'll just say that I'm totally very inexperienced with SRE workers, so keep that in mind.
Yeah, but I would go for kind of one obvious and like one high valued scenario then, because if we are talking about getting Istio ready, installed, and have other things, then it's very little for the whole quarter, I think.
We can always extend.
I may be over optimistic, but
So let's do something.
It would be
Let's keep it as is for now, and let's achieve it. And then we can always add extra key result and overachieve by the end of the quarter. I'm quite sure no one will complain about that.
I was going to
Sure.
say it would be nice to have one quarter where we overachieve. So.
Yeah. Yes.
We'll do that. Believe me, it's gonna be cool.
Great. So we are at time. Is there something big that we still want to discuss, or do we want to start to bring this async while Vladimir starts to create the first issues and we can start to? So we understand if we have enough clarity, if we are all on the same page. Also because Jenny, Ruben, Ahmad, you're gonna start this work because Vladimir is gonna go out. So we need to be sure that we have the right level of details also for the next steps. So we take it async then.
Yeah, I think we can take it as sync. If Vladimir, if you need any help, feel free to like put in meetings on my calendar before you need to leave and stuff like that.
Sure, absolutely. One thing that I wanted to bring as well is I maybe think that it's worth to create like a dedicated channel for discussing the things about that particular topic, or we just go through the delivery. And
Let's go to G delivery because like Graham also can follow up on that and everything. So I would go over the same this channel so everyone is up to speed with everything. So we have no siloing of any information.
Okay. All right. Sounds good.
Yeah, and to add on top of that, I would rather because I have pretty bad Slack etiquette when it comes to checking up on G delivery because there's so many conversations happening there. If anything important / like a lot of like eyes to be seen on that, please write the comments on the issue because yeah, I definitely do a lot more issue following than Slack following because just too many channels.
Understand.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, thank you everybody for the great work in the last quarter, for what we achieved with our OKR, Q1 OKR, and everything came together at the end. So I'm extremely happy about that. And yeah, looking forward to next quarter and speak to you later and have a good start midweek.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.